What would a Kamala Harris presidency mean for Ukraine? Why is the frontline situation in Donetsk Oblast deteriorating? And why were Russian and Chinese bombers intercepted near Alaska? This is week 126 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm Anna Belokur, reporting to you from Kyiv, and I'll be taking you through the top 3 stories from Ukraine this week. The biggest story of the week broke just a couple hours after we published last week's episode. U.S. President Joe Biden ended his campaign for re-election and shortly afterwards endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the new Democratic nominee. This move came after months of public anxiety about Biden's visibly deteriorating cognition and concern about what would happen to aid for Ukraine if Republican nominee Donald Trump were to win the presidency. There's still so much that can happen before the elections in November, so it's hard to predict anything now, but it can safely be said that Harris's stance on Ukraine is one of support. She represented the U.S. at both the Munich Security Conferences and Ukraine's Peace Summit, meeting personally with President Volodymyr Zelensky and reiterating her country's ongoing support for Ukrainian victory, as well as calling for punishment for Russia's war crimes. Many, like former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine John Herbst, say that Harris's policy toward Ukraine would likely be a continuation of that of her predecessor, Biden. Biden himself addressed the nation on Wednesday night for the first time since announcing the suspension of his campaign. In his speech, Biden said that he would spend his remaining 6 months in office working towards rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Russian President Vladimir Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage, and encouraging voters to vote for hope over hate this autumn. We've actually compiled Vice President Harris's statements on Ukraine. The video will be in the description below. Things have been going unequivocally badly in Donetsk Oblast in recent weeks. Russian forces have been attempting to break through Ukrainian lines in multiple sectors, with Pokrovsk emerging as one of the most intense sites of fighting. Donetsk to the north has also emerged as a primary target for Russian attacks. If captured, the former mining city will make vulnerable the southern flank of strategically important Chasiv Yar. Seizing Donetsk and Chasiv Yar would allow Russian troops to push further west through the region towards Konstantinivka, from which 2 highways extend toward the cities of Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. I cannot begin to describe how devastating the effects would be for Ukraine if Russia took control of these cities. The battles that are ongoing right now are battles for the entirety of Donetsk Oblast. Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky says that Russia's success on the battlefield is only tactical and comes at high costs, claiming that Russia suffers 3 times as many casualties as Ukraine. Some 520,000 Russian troops are currently on the ground in Ukraine, and this number may rise by around 170,000 more by the end of the year, according to Syrsky. He says that Russia outguns Ukraine by 2 or 3 times the amount of equipment, which is why Ukraine lost key cities like Avdiivka earlier this year. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba made his first visit to China since the start of the full-scale invasion, holding more than 3 hours of talks with his Chinese counterpart and discussing China's role in potential peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Beijing has positioned itself as neutral in Russia's war against Ukraine, but has publicly and privately acted as one of Moscow's closest allies, bolstering Russia's economy through Western sanctions and supplying them with manufacturing materials that feed the Russian war machine. China declined to attend the Global Peace Summit in June, despite Ukraine's efforts to engage the country, with China insisting that any discussion of peace must involve Russia. Kuleba's visit this week affirmed both parties' sides. China again insisted that it would only support peace talks where Russia was invited to the table, and Kuleba said that Kyiv is ready to hold peace negotiations when Moscow is ready to negotiate in good faith, which, as of right now, it is not. Still, the visit was marked by several statements of seeming solidarity.
Китай непорушно підтвердив свою повагу до принципу суверенітету і територіальної цілісності України.
Zelensky also announced on Wednesday that China confirmed that it will not provide Russia with weapons, although this doesn't address the issue of the materials that China supplies that ultimately fuel the Russian military industry. One more odd note on the topic of Russia, China, and more. The North American Aerospace Defense Command intercepted 2 Russian Tu-95 bombers and 2 Chinese H-6 bombers in the airspace near Alaska. Although the command says it's not abnormal for Russian aircraft to fly in the vicinity of Alaska, this is the first incident of planes from both Russia and China being intercepted on a single flight. That's all for this week. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine. Your support is what makes our work possible. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to become a member of the Kyiv Independent community, please visit the link in the description below. I'll see you next week.